Kia ora everyone, I'm Justine, the nerdy half of the Breakaway Bravehearts, and today I'm back in Aotearoa, New Zealand, exploring the stunning Whangarei district near the top of New Zealand's North Island. Today we're using the lens of social tourism to review two tourist providers who are all about New Zealand's flora and fauna, Kiwi North and the Kauri Museum. I'll talk you through my experience and review each of them in terms of their impact on the community, the environment, and of course how much fun I had. Our first stop is a museum dedicated entirely to a tree. Yep, you heard right, a tree museum. Celebrating the Kauri tree and its huge role that it's played in the history of Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Kauri Museum has stories of European pioneers, foresters and sawmillers, gum diggers and farmers, and of business people, fishers, and the families who have made this area their home. Back in the day, the forestry and kauri gum industries played a huge role in turning indigenous Aotearoa into colonial New Zealand. Kauri boosted the economy, helped create the infrastructure, and was key in getting colonists into what they would have termed undeveloped areas, but which could also be called the respected forests of the tangata whenua. The legacy of these industries endures in the cultural heritage of New Zealand with both positive and negative impacts. For the indigenous Māori of Aotearoa, kauri held both a spiritual significance and a practical role. Kauri trees were used to build waka, canoes, and whare, houses. Kauri gum was also collected and used as a fire starter, an adhesive, and even as chewing gum. The kauri forests themselves were regarded as sacred spaces, filled with ancestral ties. So I can't imagine their pain to see the colonial forestry industry take flight. The rapid deforestation driven by the kauri industry had a profound and lasting environmental impact on New Zealand's flora and fauna. In the 800 years of human occupation of New Zealand, 75% of the forests have been lost. Initially, it was by wholesale burning and then through logging. The museum acknowledges both this impact and the significance of kauri to Māori in their beautiful opening exhibit, a light-filled artistic recreation of a kauri forest. As we walked through, you could really feel the spiritual connection that they tried to recreate. Birdsong played in the background, while the flittering lights recreated sunlight through the leaves. This section of the museum is a very recent development, and it does them proud. We hope that they continue to develop this theme of acknowledging nature alongside industry. The following sections of this huge museum were dedicated to pioneer life. I loved the way the exhibits revolved around people. You could see them in action, posed with the tools and technology of the day, set in authentic displays of the conditions of the time. It really helped me understand what life was like for them. Tough, rugged, and filled with hard labour and challenging conditions. Men were drawn to the industry by the promise of making a living in a new colony. The work was physically demanding and hazardous. This tough life in colonial New Zealand brought a sense of community among workers. Logging camps and gum fields often served as makeshift settlements where workers lived in rough shacks or tents. The museum seems to cover every aspect of early colonial life. We peeked in the windows of a boarding house filled with people of all walks of domestic life frozen in time. We also saw the machines that dominated their working lives in a large exhibit hall packed with machinery showing the development of technology over time. And of course, we saw kauri and kauri gum, a huge collection, including a piece of 30 million year old swamp kauri, which really left me amazed, and everything came with an explanation. So I learnt a lot about this part of my country's history, which leads me nicely into the first BB star on our social tourism themed review of the Kauri Museum. There were definitely plenty of opportunities to learn within the museum, with information provided for each exhibit. The museum also provides private tours and behind-the-scenes special tours at extra cost. I'll pop the link in the blog post on our website. By appointment, you can also use their library and archives. They hold extensive documentary and photographic archives relating to the kauri forests, the kauri timber, and the gum industries. They're also guardian to archives of genealogies of the early families of the district. The third point on the social growth star is a tricky one for me to award. I absolutely loved the knowledge presented, but I do have to admit that I felt it was very white, to put it bluntly. The newest section of the museum does acknowledge Māori connections to the kauri forests, but while the website says the museum has stories of the Māori of the northeastern Kaipara, I have to say it wasn't obvious to me. I really would have liked to have learned more about how Māori connected to the kauri forests in the past, and the impact of the colonial forestry industry on Māori culture and life. I did see displays about other European immigrants, i.e. non-British colonists, and how the forestry industry contributed to the diversity of New Zealand's growing population. In particular, Scandinavian immigrants played a significant role in the early development of the industry. In fact, I actually have my own ancestral connection here. My great-great-grandfather came from Denmark sometime around 1872 to run a mill and raise a family in New Zealand's South Island. I have read his diaries of the time and was fascinated by his life. So seeing the exhibits in this museum really helped me make a personal connection to my own ancestry. Although definitely not small, the museum is what we would consider out of the way and a little different in its content, so we are giving it the uniqueness point. But while the museum does offer volunteer opportunities, we can't say for certain that these would suit travellers, as they are more likely to require a long-term commitment or time for training. Next up, Treasury, or where does the money go? The museum is a self-funded charitable trust run by a local board of trustees. Both the entrance fee and shop revenue cover the running of the museum, as they don't receive local or central government funding for operational expenses. The board is made up of a mix of paid staff and volunteers, many of whom have generational links to the community. It also makes sure it's accessible for those requiring wheelchair access. The walkways within the museum are wide and wheelchair accessible. There is an elevator to get to the second story. You just need to let them know when you arrive and the staff will assist you. They even have a complimentary wheelchair available for visitors to use if you need it. I couldn't see any accommodations for hearing or sight impairments, but from memory the videos did have subtitles. But if anyone has more first-hand experience of this, please comment and let us know. The toilets were gender divisive. Scattered about, with a little less prominence than the men, are the women of the community. This scene, based on a photograph taken circa 1916, highlights the gender divisions typical of the era. It's a true reflection of history, as seen through the eyes of the white male storyteller, the only voice that was prominent at the time. Right from the moment we walked in, Kiwi hospitality was at play. I'm probably biased, seeing as this is my culture in action here, but after experiencing the service industry in many parts of the world, I have to say I just love the relaxed, friendly, no worries approach to customer relationships in New Zealand. The Kauri Museum was no exception. The receptionist talked us through the map, laughingly slowing down and repeating herself when we admitted we couldn't remember everything that she'd said. It is a big space and a bit of a maze, so her help with getting around was really useful. What I absolutely loved about this museum was the in-action displays of mannequins, and I was delighted to discover that they are actually all based on locals. This one, a man sowing manure, was modelled by Fred Poyner, a volunteer at the museum who is the son of a Kauri bushman and bullock team driver. Bryce Cullen, a local descendant of an early pioneer family that had been in the timber industry for many years, lends not just his likeness, but also his voice to the exhibit.
I'm Brian. I'm moving this log with a timberjack.
I think this is a wonderful touch, to have local men sharing their stories, literally giving their faces to make the museum come to life. The Kauri Museum has been certified net carbon zero since 2010. The museum is not reachable via public transport. However, there are EV charging points outside the main building for electric cars. Another key way that they contribute to sustainability goals is through their education around deforestation. However, this is a tricky one, as of course at the same time the museum is promoting the industry that contributed to massive deforestation across the country. I'm sure it's a difficult balance for them to find, and I commend them for attempting to. The rapid deforestation driven by the Kauri industry has had a profound and lasting environmental impact on New Zealand's native forests and biodiversity. As the Kauri forests were cleared, habitats for plant and animal species were destroyed. Plus, the removal of Kauri trees disrupted soil stabilisation and water retention, causing erosion and damaging waterways. But New Zealand's forestry industry is still a key contributor to the country's economy, providing employment, export revenue, and valuable resources. It's evident on the roads in Whangarei, where you'll see logging trucks on their way to the port. The industry supports thousands of jobs across the country, particularly in rural areas where alternative employment opportunities are probably limited. So New Zealand monitors the sustainability of our forest management through the international system called the Montreal Process. Our current forestry practices are grounded in the principles of sustainability and strive to have positive environmental benefits, such as soil conservation and habitat restoration. Actually, I got a little excited when I read that according to the World Population Review, New Zealand has had a 5.5% net gain in forest cover, and it's ranked with a low rate of deforestation. However, the site then explained that first world countries like New Zealand typically have low deforestation rates because they do not have large forests now anyway. So there really isn't a lot more to take away anymore, and a 5% increase is very little. There are also still other challenges associated with the forestry industry. A recent example is the increasing concern of slash wood flooding in New Zealand. Finding a balance between economic needs, environmental sustainability, and social equity remains a key challenge for New Zealand's forestry sector. We hope the Kauri Museum continues to think through this challenge and considers the role that it might play. So overall, the Kauri Museum doesn't score too badly in our social tourism review. I really did learn a lot. It certainly left me thinking about the impact of industry on New Zealand's biodiversity. So the obvious next step was to learn more with a visit to our final stop, Kiwi North. And this is where I will get to see my favourite animals in the world. Okay, I am a little biased. The unique flightless bird that brings together all the ethnicities that make up New Zealand's population by giving us our unifying nickname, Kiwis. In case you haven't guessed it yet, I'm talking about the bird, not the fruit. Travellers should know that in New Zealand we reverse the names. For us, a kiwi refers to the bird, and we call the fruit just that, kiwi fruit. That's just a quick tip that might save you some confusion. According to Māori legend, Kiwi once flew on beautiful coloured wings, but the forest was becoming endangered and needed protection from the ground. The gods asked all the birds to volunteer to come down to the earth to guard and protect the trees. But none of them accepted the challenge, except the kiwi. There was a sacrifice. The kiwi lost its wings and grew short, stubby legs. This selfless action did not go unnoticed Tane Mahoka, promised the kiwi would become the most well-known and most loved bird of all. And so it is. Entering the kiwi house, we were greeted with a friendly welcome and an explanation of what we would find within. We were sad to learn that the tuatara had passed away, but delighted to learn that there were 2 male kiwi in the nocturnal room, although they had to be separated from each other due to their naturally aggressive natures. Kiwis are only active at night, so in captivity they are kept in as much darkness as possible during the day, in a carefully monitored environment that matches their life in the wild. It's built to suit the bird, not the humans. So you'll need time for your eyes to adjust when you first walk in. Mostly what you'll see at first is darkness, but slowly as your eyes adjust, you'll start to scan the enclosure for movement. Look for something flickering through the leaves, and soon enough, you'll get to see the magnificent kiwi foraging for food, just as they would in the wild. The enclosure has day and night on a reversed cycle, with a dusk and dawn, day and night temperatures adjusted to match natural seasons, and it even rains inside the enclosure twice a week. When the kiwi are inside their homes preening, napping, or doing the housework, you can spy on them through the cameras planted inside their burrows. Learning and connecting with kiwi is vital to New Zealand's social good, as this icon of our country still suffers from a steadily declining population. Without ongoing support, experts estimate the brown kiwi will be extinct in the wild within 2 generations. So the educational programs Kiwi North offer are vital in helping the next generation appreciate and care for these precious birds. Kiwi North are funded by the Ministry of Education and often focus their programs for schools around issues of conservation. They also have twice daily kiwi feeding sessions, where keepers share their knowledge with visitors and offer personal insights into the personalities of their kiwi. You can also join weekly creature encounters to meet one of their reptiles or invertebrates and learn about how you can contribute to their sustainability. Kiwi North has a lot to share, and it's not all about the kiwi. Apart from the live animals, there's also a museum upstairs showcasing the now extinct moa and giving insight into the history of the region. Out the back of the museum, down the hill, is a little colonial village, complete with a model train, a prison, a schoolhouse, a workshop, and the smallest octagonal chapel in New Zealand. This tiny church is made from a single kauri log. The focus here are the European families of the time, and the information is limited to that specific part of history. Along with their hands-on learning activities, they also make their collections open to the community through research, displays, special exhibitions, and events which change regularly. Kiwi North are always looking for volunteers, so there's always a chance to contribute to learn and develop. While most of their volunteer activities are probably not suitable to transient travellers, they do often need help maintaining the grounds. So if you're interested in a day of gardening or weed whacking, I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing from you. I've put the link in the description. Kiwi House are a not-for-profit organisation owned and administered by the Kauri Museum and Heritage Trust and run by a small team of staff and volunteers. Some of the areas did look a bit difficult to access via wheelchair. I didn't notice accommodations for hearing or sight impairments. The videos in the museums did have captions in English. Toilets were gender divisive. Not only did we get a cheery welcome, but as we wandered through the grounds, staff and volunteers said hello and pointed out bits and pieces we might otherwise have missed. But I have to say, my favourite new friend was this fabulous pūkeko, who was very keen to engage with me. I don't think he's a trained pickpocket, just very curious.
That's my purse.
A quick look on the Kiwi North Facebook page shows the fabulous connection they have with their community. I particularly loved the free entry for mums this Mother's Day, along with a storytelling competition for kids and their regular updates on bugs, fungus and other treasures locals can find in their gardens and bush. The museum is not reachable via public transport. Kiwi North is committed to sustainable tourism. They are within a green belt space. The animals they use for display and education have been captive born to avoid the stress wild-born animals feel in captivity. Kiwi North is part of the National Captive Kiwi Management Program and looks after young kiwi until they are either selected for breeding or released into safe environments. Out the back of Kiwi House is the Bird Hospital, the Whangarei Native Bird Recovery Centre, which takes care of wild birds from sparrows right through to albatrosses. This completely volunteer, non-profit operation gives treatment and rehabilitation for injured and ill native birds so they can be returned back to the wild. But it was back to the domestic life for us. I, for one, have had a fabulous time here, reconnecting with my homeland and learning so much more about a history and culture that has made me who I am. And I'm just scratching the surface. Our next video features an interview with Cece, a guide at the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. This passionate young historian was truly inspiring as she led me through the twists and tangles of New Zealand's founding documents.
It's about storytelling. It's not just about the history facts. It's about the people in that history. He tangata, it's about the people.
To join me, make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications button. Until then, happy travels everyone!